Yay!
Hello, yes, and we are finally here. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of Wine, Women, and Words. And joining me is the wonderful guest co-host, Antonia. Antonia is a wonderful friend of mine who I love talking about books with, and we were in book clubs together before. Actually, one in particular was the Vaginal Fantasy Book Club, started by Felicia Day and her friends.
Which was awesome.
That's how we met. It was, and it's still going on. We just don't have enough time to actually read it, unfortunately, the book. So, but because of that, we became ambassadors of smut.
It's very true, though.
It is. It's a title I find very near and dear to me. I include it on all my resumes.
Maybe that's why nobody knew was hiring me.
Right? Oh, maybe that was it. Damn it. Well, it is a very cold and rainy night, and we are enjoying some wonderful warm alcoholic drinks because alcohol is not just for the warm weather, it's for the cold weather too. What are you drinking tonight, Antonia?
Tonight I am drinking hot apple cider with apple pie moonshine in it.
I love that mug. It's so very you. It's vintage, isn't it?
Thank you. It's been in the family for a solid while.
So to educate some of you guys on the vintage awesomeness of Antonia, she also does World War II reenactments.
I do, because I'm a nerd like that.
And that's why we love you. So for these World War II reenactments, what is your specific role? I don't think I've ever asked you that.
I do a field nurse impression, which both has the benefit of letting us kind of inflict history knowledge upon people in an area that a lot of people don't kind of realize existed. And also it means for the sake of reenacting, since the field nurses were basically the closest to the front line who were ladies, it's kind of the thing we can do to go out and hang out with the guys.
Very cool.
Eat each other and play in mud.
I love it. When I've gone to her to find women in history for stuff that I've been writing, she's like, oh great, there's this nurse, and then there's this nurse, and this nurse is really great too. So, I think one day she could probably write a book on World War II nurses and how they were awesome and probably tough as nails, tougher than some of the soldiers.
Very, very true, honestly.
Mm-hmm. Well, tonight I also have a mug too, because it's pouring where I am. And I'm enjoying a nice cup of hot chocolate with amaretto, which surprisingly really well together.
Oh, I'd believe it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I've been to Kahlua. Kahlua and hot chocolate has been my drink of choice as of late, but I can't find my homemade Kahlua, and store-bought Kahlua after you've done homemade Kahlua just isn't the same.
Understandable.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So, moving on, the Tsarina's Legacy is our current book that we are reading. And this, for those of you who are watching, this is it. By the way, you can catch us not only here on YouTube, but at podcasts.com, at googleplay.com, and by the end of the night, or possibly by the end of the weekend, it will be at soundcloud.com. I'm going to get us set up over there. So even if you have an iPhone, you can actually use us, because I, for some reason, have been having the worst time getting an iTunes account set up. So, with that being said, and all those wonderful shout-outs being said, Tsarina's Legacy, what are your thoughts on it so far, Antonia?
I am generally really liking it so far.
Oh, good. I'm loving that everybody who's come on is actually really enjoying it. I've been so afraid that everybody coming out would be like, oh no, I hated it.
Yeah. No, the main thing that gives me pause on it is that the back and forth type books, where it's like one chapter in one time period and one chapter with another time period, always, it makes me have to like hold myself back from just like reading all the odd number chapters first. Like, I get invested in one of the stories during that chapter, and then I'm like, I don't want to have to wait on the cliffhanger.
But I know. I feel that way sometimes with this book, going back and forth, where I'm like, oh, I don't want to read more about Grisha right now. I want to know more about what's going on between Veronica and Michael.
Yes. especially I right before this, I was finishing my reading, and their chapter left on a major cliffhanger. So now I'm like, I have to actually talk about the book, and I can't just read it and finish it.
Oh, I know, the torture of it all. So I'm glad you're liking it. And our topic today is modern feminism, modern feminist literature. And I think this book definitely falls within that category of a modern feminist piece of literature. Because we all know these standard go-tos for feminist literature, and your Sylvia Plath, The Handmaid's Tale, was it The Bell Jar? It's been so long since I've read like the true feminist handbooks on feminism that it's nice to point out some of the ones that you can find in modern literature. And this is one of those ones because you have this heroine who she's intellectual. She's not your stereotypical in-your-face kind of girl. She's not one or the other. And you've got this complicated relationship where she's just not going to fall for the guy right away. And likewise, even looking at the historical side of it, because I think the last 2 weeks we focused so much on Veronica and Michael's relationship in the modern story, which everybody loves the modern story. The modern side of this book is such a great side of the story. That I feel like we need to give some more attention to the historical side of it, where Catherine the Great was a feminist in a time period where there was no such thing.
Yes. Absolutely. And F you to the patriarchy.
Yes, exactly. And not just F you to the patriarchy, it was, I'm going to get me mine, and y'all going to wait your turn, and y'all going to listen to what I say.
I think I aspire to be her. We all.
Yes. I think we all do. I think we all do here at Wine, Women, and Words. Catherine the Great is now our person we strive to be. But she was known as spreading enlightenment through Russia. And it's interesting reading watching the Netflix series about the czars. And I've talked about this before, and it's like something about the czars of Russia's czars or something like that. But it was interesting that they were showing political cartoons about Catherine during that time in the 1800s. And there was one that was just so great that they showed where it was a very giant Catherine walking over the heads of these kings, and if you taking the opportunity to look up her skirts, and she was just walking all over them, and she was a threat to them. Oh, what are your takes on this and Catherine being so strong?
Well, obviously she's amazing. I appreciated in the modern side of things too, though, that recently Veronica mentioned essentially how like we always hope that if we had lived in those times that we would be enlightened and forward thinking. Also like pointing out that Catherine had been very forward thinking for her time. But yeah, I liked that yeah, we don't like to think we would carry our modern ideals with us. Yeah, she's such a baller. Like what can you really say there?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, she did, and she had a drive that, I'm sure throughout history. I mean, there have been women who've had that drive. I mean, look at the female Egyptian pharaohs, Queen Elizabeth I. But I think there's been more women over history who have had that drive, who have wanted that power, but they don't actually go out and get it because of the forces around them, or they think that they can't because of their situation. So yes, they just act as a puppet through the guy who leads them.
Well, and it's also worth noting that a lot of those historically strong women, like history tried so hard on so many of them to just get rid of all record.
So true. So true. And not only get rid of all the record, but to rewrite them. I mean, in Catherine's story up until really this book and the Netflix documentary, I didn't know much about her, but she had that reputation that where she had a really strong sexual appetite to the point where people brought her a horse, which is not true, by the way.
Right? Yeah, no, that's completely people just trying to discredit her, which is ridiculous, but history for it.
And it's something that I've always wondered about. Why, the larger question, why have strong women been something to fear? I don't know. What are your thoughts? What's your answer? Can you solve the world?
Well, I'm sure that partly it's that they don't want anyone else getting ideas.
Sure.
If nobody else has done it according to everything you know, then you're not going to try. And I think some of it is just, I don't know, it's a very real way to try and eliminate something that you don't want to exist, you know?
Mm-hmm.
It's rewriting history as you want, which is
good point.
Not right, but that's part of the fun and stress of studying history, is digging through everything to try and come to some semblance of what might have been true.
Yes, because you're a history major, weren't you?
Yes.
Wasn't it American?
A lot of focus on how to look at historical record and basically to not trust anything that's written down. You can trust a grocery list, basically.
Yeah, which is so true about almost everything in life and literature is not necessarily literature, but life and news and media. That you can't trust everything that's given to you, especially with all this fake news controversy that's come out with Facebook.
Lord, yeah.
I know, it's almost like you need a degree just to be able to pinpoint what the correct news is.
Trust no one, especially not sensationalist things.
Exactly. The more sensational it is, the more you need to go on Snopes or Politico.com to review it.
I will say it's nice in this day and age. I feel like if you choose to make the effort on a lot of current issues, you can find a little more truth very quickly if you do a search.
Yeah, so you can educate yourself. So I mean, and that begs the question: if with the recent political things that have occurred, can we end up with another Catherine the Great, at least for America? You think? Come along with that strong of a personality, come through and lead like that?
I assume
or do you
about near future.
I'm hoping within my lifetime.
Yeah.
Really. Well, I mean, I'm feeling a little downtrodden. I was like, yes, it's going to happen before I turn 40, we're going to have somebody. Now I'm like, as long as I'm not one of those 90-year-olds who gets to actually go and vote for another woman, I'd like it to be sooner rather than later.
If you had asked me like a month and a half ago, I would say yes, absolutely. In our lifetimes, we could see a woman come to power in our country who doesn't have to worry about putting on the trappings of what people would like to see and can just be powerful in her own right. Now, having seen so much more of just the ugliness that some people kept very hidden up until now, I don't know how soon it'll be, and that makes me very sad.
Yeah, because I mean, when you go and you look at, I went back and I looked at how Catherine came into power, which came in through the Netflix documentary. She actually stole the crown. Really, when it comes down to it, she wouldn't have gotten the crown any other way because she was only a Romanov by marriage. She wasn't Romanov within the bloodline. And according to the documentary, I mean, she was made to marry this little putz of a man who was an embarrassment. And I can't recall if her son is truly Romanov, if he was that guy's son biologically, or if he was from somebody else, because nobody could get him to actually sleep with his wife, who was a gorgeous woman at that time. She was a young, beautiful woman, and he had some dalliances with some less than savory women. And when it came time for coronation, she hops into the carriage. Her hair is being done, as they're going down into the church for the coronation, so she can literally steal the crown from her husband.
I love it.
But it took for her to get power, and I think that's wonderful. And I almost feel like that's the only way that we're going to get a woman president is if somebody just comes in and takes it.
Which I feel like I'm a little more open to than I should be at this moment in time.
I kind of am too, yeah. Depending upon who the woman is.
Yeah.
It has to be somebody in the great ask, really.
Yeah.
But then I think that leads us into modern feminism and what we define modern feminism to be, because there's this standard rule that, or idea, perpetual idea that feminism is women above men, that women are better than men. I actually had a guy tell me once, "You're not a feminist. You're not angry like that." It's like, really? Just ask my husband.
What makes me angry is people thinking that's what feminism is.
Yes, exactly. And yeah, so I think we should spend a little bit of time talking about what feminism is.
Absolutely.
And this may have been the case back in the 60s, but given the fact that women were so much further behind where the men were, that it felt like they were taking from the men, that they were angrier and they wanted to be better than the men.
Well, and it's that old, I can't remember the exact phrasing, but when you've been used to being above people, then equality feels like oppression to you. Which is, yeah, just we want an equal seat at the table. And, it's nowhere near obviously as bad as it used to be. Like, nobody's slapping us on the butt and calling us toots or anything. But, we've still got further that we need to go, which, again, I feel like this election has made very clear.
We've got so much further to go. But I think modern feminism in and of itself is, looking at equality, true equality. I think the best example for this, for wanting equality, is the draft, looking at the draft. I'm not a supporter of the draft. Currently, as the draft stands, if we were to have a draft like we did before, it would be men going into the draft. Just men, no women, which isn't fair.
So dumb. Yeah. No, I don't want a draft at all. Like, I think we should get rid of that. But if we're going to keep it, then we should all have to sign up. Like.
Exactly. And I don't want to sign up. I don't want to be drafted into the military. My husband was in the military. I saw the shit that he went through.
Yeah.
I don't want to be downrange. I don't have the guts that those soldiers have when they're downrange. Yeah. I really don't. I'm plus. And
yeah, I feel like no draft for anyone, but if we're going to keep it, everyone should have to sign up. And while I think that combat roles should be opened up to women who are capable for them, at the very least, if you have women, you can shove us in the desk jobs, free a man to fight against all that jazz.
Those of us who are with us, and I don't want to say shove us in the desk jobs, because I know my husband, he worked with a few women on his team that were tougher than him, that could kick any guy's ass.
That's what I mean, yeah. But I think that combat should be opened up to women who are capable. Like, if I'm looking at my list of who I'd trust to have my back in a fist fight, it's actually mainly women.
Right? Ronda Rousey being at the top of the list. But, and then another great example is American Ninja Warrior. Yeah. I love the show during the summertime because it's a great example of modern feminism, because you've got this one obstacle course. Yeah, everybody's got to run, and it is grueling.
No down course for ladies or anything.
Exactly. No down course. They don't have to have a shorter time. They have to have as fast of a time as a guy. And there have been, I can't remember I don't know who the current winner is. I don't know if it was that one really awesome stunt girl or not.
I can't remember either. I don't watch it regularly, but I tend to watch it if I'm flipping channels and it's on.
Yeah, I was watching it regularly, and then we went on vacation, and when I came back, it was on a break, and I just never got back to it.
Yeah.
And
for me, it was my dinner after workout show because it was on then.
Well, there was this one woman that was on there who was a stunt, a stunt woman, and she was a stunt woman. She had been on Supergirl. She's been on a number of other shows. and she flew through them. And now I'm going to have to go back and look and see if she actually won. But she did it just as well as the men and better than some of the men.
Yeah.
And I think if you give women the opportunity to be equal with men, then they will. They can rise up to that. You can't say just because you got a pair of boobs and no penis that you can't do these things.
Yeah.
And
well, my thing is, I'm willing to acknowledge that there might not be as many of us physically capable of doing everything as a guy could, but we should not let the women who can do it be held back.
absolutely.
Like,
Absolutely. And then
that I could do any of that. Like, I am a delicate little flower, mainly because I'm too lazy to do push-ups. But
I will root for you. I will root for you from the sidelines. I will be the best damn cheerleader.
I will just be in the water immediately.
As much as I want to, like, I want to do that. I know I don't have the proper coordination. Even if I had the athletic ability, I would not have the coordination. I trip with my own damn feet. So
great, yeah. So like, I'm willing to acknowledge that. Yeah, I'm not saying that like all of us could definitely do it or anything, but some of us can't. Let them do it.
Some of us can't. And then looking at the flip side of things, looking at the male side, part of feminism is acknowledging that men can do things around the house.
Yes.
Men are capable of doing their own laundry.
Yeah, I feel like, well, like, not just take on more of an equal role with that kind of things, but that you're allowed to have emotions besides anger.
Yeah.
That's not healthy.
What was it that was race? Oh, was it? Oh, I was reading a great article. It was the difference between Harry Potter and who was our hero in Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them?
Newt. I can never say the last name.
Commander.
I'm a bad fan.
Yeah.
He's a Hufflepuff.
Huh?
And he's a Hufflepuff.
Well, it was interesting, this article, because it was looking at the idea of toxic masculinity versus, and I think I shared this on my blog's page, Creating Her Story, on its Facebook page, where you have the toxic masculinity that you found with Harry and Harry's story going up as a teenager. And then you have, and even going into some of the Chris Child, you had that bit of that where I've got to fix everything. I've got to be, I'm the guy, and these are the roles you're supposed to have. And then you've got Newt, who doesn't have that aggression that Harry would have, and call it whether or not the fact that he's a Hufflepuff, or whether it's the fact that
Badger pride.
Well, I mean, even look at it's not just the houses, because I gotta defend my Slytherin.
Oh yeah.
I mean, Snape wasn't the kind of guy who would get really angry and up in your face. He wasn't I wouldn't consider him to be a toxic masculine person.
I feel like some of his issues stem from toxic masculinity, though. Like, I feel like he's
not a toxic masculine guy, because he was a bully to Harry. He was bullied by Harry's dad, who was a toxic dude.
But that's what I mean. I feel like his issues were that he didn't live up to the standards set within toxic masculinity, but I don't feel like he ever rejected it either.
Okay, I see what you're saying, and I can agree with that.
And that, like, I don't know, I feel like his kind of, like, obsession with Lily kind of stemmed from that, in that, like, yeah, I don't know, I felt like her and young James, Snape and, like, younger James didn't, like, I don't feel like either of them saw her as, like, a real person. It was more as a prize to be claimed.
I think Snape saw her as a real person, though. I don't think it was necessarily as a prize to be claimed, because she was the first and only friend that he ever had.
I guess a real person might be the wrong thing, but more as who they wanted her to be, as opposed to who she was. Like, I feel like if he loved Lily who Lily is, then he would not have been able to support any sort of pure blood supremacy, you know?
True, I could see that. But maybe even might consider the fact that he was supporting the pure blood supremacy issue because of the fact that he was heartbroken by Lily.
I feel like that's where I think that he didn't ever opt out of toxic masculinity, and that failing in the achievement of getting the girl, then he lashes out.
Which you see happen over and over again. I was actually binge watching Fuller House, and they had a little episode of that because I watch cheesy things on television.
I can't judge at all. I'm very encouraged. I feel like there have been a lot of movies lately with masculine heroes who pretty much do reject toxic masculinity.
Yeah.
And like in Fury Road, for instance, you know, you see Max stepping aside to let Furiosa take the shot, you know, things like that, without any fuss over, you know, being shown up or anything. You have Poe in Star Wars, who's just like totally chill the whole way through.
That's my new Star Wars crush. I used to be a Han Solo girl. Now I'm
I'm a Poe girl all the way along. Not just because he's gorgeous. But yeah, just, you know, he's someone who's like immediately encouraging to like his new stormtrooper friend.
Yeah, like, and that's one of the things I like.
Yeah, there's no like trying to show each other up or anything. Same with like Finn and Rey. Like everyone just kind of immediately embraces everyone as a valuable member of a team.
This is one of the best fandoms out there. What I like about a relationship between Finn and Rey, bringing up the whole idea of toxic masculinity, is that when he feels the need to protect her and take on that role of I'm going to protect you, I'm going to take you by the hand, and I'm going to lead you away from this danger. And she pulls away, he's like, stop holding my hand.
I appreciate her saying that, but I don't know, I didn't get a ton of lead her away from danger with that. It always felt to me more like we don't want to get separated from him. So I generally appreciate how that scene played out, because again, I feel like even when he did it, it wasn't coming from a super patriarchal place. But then and I appreciated her shutting it down anyway. And then, you know, when she helps him up and they continue on together.
Well, I think a lot of it was the fact that he almost felt like this was the role that he was supposed to take. But yet he didn't really feel that was the role because he had respect for Rey. And when she pulled away and said, oh, no, you need to get back into your own lane, he got back into his own lane.
Right, with no thinking about it. Just, okay.
And bringing it back to our current book, to Zarina's Legacy. When Veronica feels that Michael gets too pushy, she's like, back in your own lane. And he relatively gets back into his own lane, grumbling and complaining the whole way, but he still does it.
Right, yeah. And I feel like that's a huge part of kind of where I am with feminism right now, and kind of where I hope we can get sooner rather than later, is to like, please listen to me on choices like that.
Yeah, I really get angry when you have fathers, where you have this idea in some of the television shows where fathers don't know what the hell they're doing when it comes to taking care of their kids. I don't have kids yet, but when it comes to like Michelle and her family with her husband Rich, you know, I've watched him around his kids. He can pick up his kid, he can change his kid's diaper, he can get his kid a drink without an issue. One of my other good friends, Amanda, watching her husband be a dad to her son, they're capable of being nurturing. And by perpetuating this toxic male idea that men have to be this way, they have to be big and they have to be gruff, and you can't show your emotions, and you can't be the nurturing one where the woman has to take care of everything, I think it's damaging to fathers. It's damaging to the way men can be parents, and it takes them away from the parenting world that they can have.
Yes. Like, just, I don't know. I don't feel like it's bad if everyone in the world is willing to be just a little bit softer to each other, you know?
And recognizing the fact that, one of us is better at some things than others. Like one person in the relationship may be more of a nurturer while the other one is more of a player. Like with the dogs with Ryan and I, not that they're children or anything, but as an example's sake, even though they're children to us, we always joke around, mommy's for cuddles and daddy's for playtime, because they always want to come to me when it comes to cuddle time.
Right? And that's how it works for you guys.
Yeah, and that's how it works for us. It may be something different for other people, and that's okay.
Yeah.
It's just the way it is. And when you look at even like the same-sex relationships, you have, in some cases, you have parents where one is more nurturing than the other. They take on those roles, and of just.
But yeah, I think very much does come down to individuals as opposed to gender, which I don't understand why that's a hard concept for so much of the world.
Yeah, and it's only Western civilization where we have this idea that gender is there's only two genders. It's only in Western civilization that we have this. Civilizations in South America, Native American civilizations, you have up to like, what, 3 or 4 genders? 5 in a few cases?
Well, and also with stuff like that, I also don't get why people want to make it into a huge political thing. Mm-hmm. Just in the sense of not hurting you. And like, I feel like a lot of it coming from the religious right, like, you know what, even if you think someone's going to help for it, that's no reason to tell them they are not allowed to be who they are, like, here and now.
It's like, well, with Ryan, after he came back from being overseas, his number one thing was, having experienced the war, or war in general, I should say, his take on it is, who am I to tell somebody else how to be happy?
Yeah.
It comes down to. And interestingly, I learned something that when I went to Fiji, one of the cautionary things that they have for Fiji before we went, and I thought that this was really interesting, is that if you have a family with like no girls, some families will actually pick one of the children to take on the female roles and be the female in the family and do like the female stereotypical things that a girl would do for the household. And they treat them just like a girl, to the point where they're like, gender-wise, it's as if they have a daughter. And in some cases, they go on to become to be gay and to have those types of relationships down the line. And in some cases, they just grow up and have normal heterosexual relationships. And it was one of the cautionary things, because they were like, be careful of these people, because from that, some of those people from that situation will go out and become prostitutes. So that's where I learned about it, because I was like, okay, what do I need to warn myself about Fiji? Like, I'm looking just for like diseases, or am I gonna get, what scams am I gonna get robbed by? I mean, I'm not out looking for that sort of thing. So it was like, okay.
I never knew that.
Yeah, and it's one of those interesting things that, how we take gender, how we treat gender, and how we teach gender.
Just let people be who they are.
Yes. Well, I love it. It was so hilarious. I was at the zoo with my friend and her son, and we're going through the gift shop. And she was like, oh, we have to go look at the girl toys. He likes girls' toys, and he's 4 years old. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, this is interesting. I like to see how this happens, because I don't know how I would take it when I become a mom. You just kind of, let the kid do what they want to be happy. And so she was like, but wait, watch this. She asked her son, so why do you like girls' toys? And he looks up at us and goes, because I like girls. And then goes and like starts pointing out all these different girl toys. And she's like, we found out the reason why he likes girls' toys is because when he gets to the girls' toys, he gets to go play with the girls at preschool. Doesn't care about playing with little boys. He's going to play with little girls. And it's
adorable.
It is. So, I mean, we can't be too stifling, because, I mean, really, come on now.
Well, also with so many toys, it's so pointless to gender them. Like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's ridiculous. That's a thing. Things like Legos, for instance, like they're
Yeah,
building
life should be genderized.
and
Yeah.
not anyone use the damn things.
Yeah, I think a pink Legos are okay, but I want to be able to still make my own airplane out of pink Legos. There's nothing wrong with having a pink airplane.
I
Having
admit,
a
as
pink
a
fighter
kid,
pilot or fighter plane.
I rebelled so hard against pink as a kid because I could tell that it was being shoved down my throat, and I was just like, I'm not having it. So I went through that phase where I kind of rejected a lot of femininity because it was expected and I wasn't having that. So yeah, it wasn't until like late high school, college that I finally was like willing to be like, okay, it's not bad. Like I'm allowed to be feminine on my own terms without
Exactly.
doing what's expected necessarily in all aspects of life.
Yeah, you know, growing up, I hated it too. That was another thing where I was expected where if I'm gonna be the kind of person who doesn't want to be tied down to specific gender stereotypes, I'm not gonna like this color. And for the longest time, I wouldn't wear anything pink, didn't want anything to do with pink. Blue was my favorite color growing. Purple and blue were my favorite colors growing up. And my bedroom was done in blue with sunflowers. And it was just that was the way it was. And yeah, for me, same thing. It wasn't until I was in college where I was like, my feminism is going to be based on my own definitions and not what society feels that it should. So I was like,
definitely went through that phase of thinking I was better than other girls because I wasn't being girly. So there. Which, you know, now I want to go back and smack young Antonia in the face because that's ridiculous. But yeah, and I think it's ridiculous that we accidentally teach young girls that kind of behavior.
Interesting. I was listening to Madonna's speech when she accepted her Woman of the Year award, and she was talking about how feminists actually told her she set women back because of the way she chose to be so sexual. And I think a lot of what feminism is, you know, going back to what we've kind of gone on to is it's not just about equality, it's about what the individual wants and what the individual chooses to do. Go shake your tatas around a pole, that's your choice. So long as you're not being demeaned by your boss and taken advantage of financially.
Yeah, that's my main, well, pretty much my only issue with anything like that is that I do think that people need to look at why they're doing something, and make sure that they're coming at it from kind of a good direction. Yeah, just I'm not putting it to words well right now, but
well, I think with in the case of Madonna, so much of it was statement. So much of it was saying you can own your own sexuality. You can be Catherine, like Catherine the Great was, and have sex with as many men or women or both as you want. You could have these desires and these urges that are typically set only for men.
Essentially, I guess I'm thinking of more in today's climate, so to speak, as, you know, women are entering into celebrity, you know, just I hope that everyone has the chance to look at themselves and kind of decide for themselves if they want to do that and that they aren't being pressured by, you know, men in suits somewhere to please be sexier to sell some more albums. Just, yeah, I guess I'm a little cynical and I don't always trust that things like that are coming from a woman's, you know, her own decision in her own vacuum.
And that's very true because, I mean, that's not always coming from the case. I mean, just look at the whole Kesha thing. I mean, I'm not a fan of Kesha's music, but if you look at how she was...
still liking a lot of it more than I should.
That's okay. I've got my dirty pleasures too. But with some of her stuff, I mean, if it comes on the radio, sometimes I'll be like, okay, you know, it's about belong to this, all right. But the situation that she was in was wrong.
Yeah.
Where she's in contract with this guy and the way he treated her and the way he acted, that was wrong. And so, yeah, we can question the stuff, and sometimes it needs to be questioned.
Yeah.
But when someone says, but by questioning it, we have to make sure that we don't also point fingers at it at the same time.
No, absolutely. Yeah.
But yeah, like, okay, let's question Madonna back in the 80s when she was doing her.
Well, and my thing is,
really
if someone says, like, no, I'm choosing this for myself, then I'm probably going to believe them.
Exactly.
But yeah, with some up-and-comers, you know, I don't know, it's probably a little maternalistic of me and not necessarily flattering to me. But, you know, you wonder once in a while, like, are you making this choice for
teenage
yourself,
girls,
your old child?
Yeah, those girl childs who are out there doing their shaking their ass, and they're barely 16, and they're singing these provocative songs like dating myself, Christina Aguilera, when she's like 16 years old, singing Genie in the Bottle. Come on and rub me the right way.
Yeah.
That's a 16. I mean, a 16-year-old should not be singing. Currently grown up Christina Aguilera, if she wants to sing that, fine. But yeah, you have to question where 16-year-old Christina Aguilera is on that. It's
and just being older and looking back and realizing how grown up I thought I was at like 16, as opposed to how much of an idiot I really was. Like, I would make certain life choices that someone would like grab me by the collar and be like, "You are not doing that, young lady."
I think I didn't get my opportunity to really when you're at that age, when you're still under your parents' thumb, they can kind of help you with those life choices. But at certain stages, you are also, I think I was pushed a little bit to not be allowed to make those stupid choices.
I was never given the chance to make any poor choices. Like, well, not to mention I was the little nerd of a child, so I think that took care of a lot of issues right there.
My mom was pretty controlling and very strict with me when I was 16, and I was raised in such a strict Christian environment that some people would consider it to be abusive. So when I was given the opportunity, when I finally actually got away from it, I made all those stupid choices that I should have been making when I was 16, when I had somebody to watch out for me. I was making them when I was 17 or 18 and saying F the system, F my parents, and F everybody else in between. And yeah, when I was between 17 and I would say about 19 or so after I moved out here, almost 20 when I met Ryan, that 3-year period, I started off making really, really bad decisions, wound up out here. Because some people in my family could see the way those decisions were leading. They were like, "Oh, we need to get her away from that." And then I ended up out here in California, and I was still rebelling and coming out of a lot of that stuff. But yeah, I kind of started coming down by the time I was 20. And I was lucky that I didn't make some of those stupid decisions that could have really changed things for me when I was younger.
I'm definitely a big believer in, like, letting kids make the little dumb life choices. Yeah. Like, I don't think you can stop people from making every mistake. And just, some things people have got to try on their own. But yeah, if you can keep the kid from making the real bad ones, then I feel like you've succeeded.
Yeah. Like, that tattoo of your boyfriend while you're 16.
Yeah, like, maybe don't do that.
Yeah, hold off on that at least till you're 18 and out of the house. Then you can make do whatever tattoos you want.
Yeah. And hopefully, think about it for a while, and hopefully after that thought, you come to the conclusion yourself.
Exactly. And I think that's one of the reasons why I have such problems with the young adult fiction, is because you have these 16-year-olds who are making these decisions, who are making these mistakes, but they're perpetuated as good life choices.
Yes.
Not to be really hard on Twilight. Huh?
I wasn't going to say Twilight, but I was thinking it.
You know, we're all thinking it when it comes to bad examples of bad
The easy one to go.
opposite of feminism. Yeah, and that's my go-to one where you think about it. You know, you get these bad decisions with this abusive boyfriend, but it's seen as, it's put into this light of good, of positive things.
Oh.
Or even 50 Shades of Grey.
Well, and it's Twilight fanfic.
Huh?
It's Twilight fanfic. It's the same thing.
That's exactly what it is. It's a truth of the matter.
It's, yeah, just that, and that, I feel like a lot of times in young adult, that kind of controlling boyfriend is viewed as like romantic, but it's not.
Yeah, the alpha toxic male.
Yeah. Like, no.
You want to be with this boyfriend, that this is the one that you want to be with, and you're going to spend your life, the rest of your life with him. Because you're 16, you have found him when you were 16, and every decision that you make right now is the one that you need to have for your life.
Because you're definitely
you've got a little hormonal fuck up.
But speaking of kind of young adult stuff, I am loving in this book that they're older.
Yes.
Like, yeah.
Yes.
She's not even like a 20-something college student who's studying Russian literature and finds out, you know. She's a grown woman. Like,
We're gonna place again though before the end of this podcast. I think that's my favorite now.
But yeah, like, she's grown. She has a degree that like didn't work out because life isn't perfect, you know?
And she's grown. She has a life. And I mean, right now I kind of feel like with my own writing, some of my characters are younger. They're like, the youngest that I'll go is like 18, I think, for a character who actually has to make life decisions. My World War II book that I've been working on has been, I have a character who's like 13 years old or so, but he doesn't make any life decisions other than which comic books he wants to read.
Right?
That's it.
They're
Yeah.
Like, young characters are fine. They just maybe shouldn't make huge life choices.
Exactly. Yes, but speaking of, since we got on the subject of some feminist literature that we don't like, let's talk about some of the ones that we do like. The ones that we consider to be feminist literature. So give me 2 from your list.
Okay. I have a weird list that I sort of cheated on, and that I included a nonfiction.
That's okay. That is okay. It is acceptable.
Okay. So I have on my list that I put together. So I was tempted kind of to put Ella Enchanted, because that's kind of one of the more feministy books that I read first. But even before that was Catherine Called Birdie by Karen Cushman.
Okay, I've not heard of this.
Yes, it's from 1994, apparently. I looked that up.
Okay.
But yeah, it's been a long time since I read it. But it's about a girl in, I want to say, 13th century England. And it's written for diary entries, if I remember correctly. But she's a young girl, and her father is trying to marry her off to all sorts of horrible people, and she's doing what she can to, drive them away, whether it's like blackening her teeth or, various things to get them gone. But yeah, and she was looking back, it was somewhat formative reading for me, I guess. And I feel like now there's a lot more feminist stories being written for children. But yeah, that was just really kind of the first one that I ran into. A young girl who's not willing to let someone else dictate her life, even if the rules have her confined to a certain rule.
Okay. Your next one?
Talk about 2. Okay. All right, so I'll get my nonfiction out of the way. So since I am a World War II reenactor,
Oh,
And If I Perish, by Evelyn Monahan and Rosemary Needle Greenlee.
what is it called?
And If I Perish.
Okay.
Yes, so it's looking at women in the Army Nurse Corps, kind of close to the front lines throughout World War II.
Wow.
They
That
did
has nothing to do with what you
but yeah, they did a lot of.
Me being sarcastic and you just completely ignoring my sarcasm.
They
And this is Diana. Just a joke.
they did a lot of interviews and everything with ladies, before the whole generation passes, unfortunately. But between that and a lot of diary entries and stuff, putting together kind of their view of the war as it goes through it. But yeah, generally a lot more focused on European theater for people who care about that kind of thing.
Very cool. So my next two books, I actually have a couple a couple series in here, 3 series really. The first of which is the Parasol Protectorate series. And I was just making a note here, one second. The Parasol Protectorate series is always near and dear to my heart because I absolutely love the main character. Her name's Alexia Terabati, not only because she's Italian and big boob, half Italian and big boob, just like me. I can totally relate to the way she looks. She's a fun character. She's a strong character, and she stands up against the big bad vampires and the strong alpha male werewolves, which one she does end up being with in the long run, but she's able to offset that alpha maleness with her own alpha femaleness. And so I really dig that. And going along in the series, I can't give too much away because it spoils like some of the earlier books. But she actually stands up for herself in a number of different ways. And in a time where the story itself would be like, well, now, the husband said this, and the woman just goes off and cries and is alone. The main character is like, well, then screw you. I'm going to go on vacation to another country. When, in the event that I come back, you better come to your senses. And if not, I'm just going to do this all on my own. So screw you. So I really like that about these stories, because she's strong enough to be this woman that you don't typically see in Victorian literature and even in steampunk literature, which it's starting to change. And our friend Eddie, who was on, Antonia knows Eddie, for those of you who aren't in the know. Eddie was our first guest, and I think Eddie would argue with me on this one, and I'm almost afraid to say it, but when I first started reading steampunk literature, a lot of it seemed very male orientated and a little on the sexist side. And with the Parasol Protectorate and the stuff that, Eddie perpetuates and Eddie shares. Eddie is very much a feminist, more so than me and Antonia. It's starting to become less sexist. And you were going to say something, Antonia?
Yeah, well, I feel like not just steampunk, but like kind of the more romance genre has been generally kind of falling out of that. I don't know, trapped's the wrong word, but I feel like for a long time, it was very much only alpha heroes and slightly subservient women.
Slightly. Some of them are excessively subservient.
I was trying to be generous. But yeah.
How many books, by the way, did you end up with? Because I've got like 8 and I'm like continuing to grow. So it's like, I wanted to change on my books real quick, and now I'm like adding like 2 other books.
Some weird groupings of books going on. Where I like couldn't decide, because I was trying to like kind of keep my list varied as opposed to all one kind of thing. So yeah.
I have a lot of historical fiction in my books, so there's that.
I tried to limit myself on that, which, yeah. I think then I wound up going too far in the other direction.
I have a tendency to go very much into the historical fiction direction because that's almost all that I read now is historical fiction. If it wasn't for Michelle, I wouldn't be able to get my head out of historical fiction books because of the blog and all the stuff that I actually end up reviewing is historical fiction. So I don't have time. So that's why we have Blind Women in Words, so that Michelle could force me to read non-historical fiction-based books. So the next book on my list, without just jumping into it, changing subjects, clean cut, move down. We have we have the book Wicked, which the musical was based on. I think that constitutes very much so the idea of a modern feminist book. You have a woman who Antonia and I, like we were talking about, like with Catherine the Great, where history, quote unquote, actually tries to rewrite her. They take this woman who is, it's very easy to see her as a villain in the movie. But after reading Wicked and after watching the musical, you see a whole nother side to her, to the point where I can't even watch Wizard of Oz the same way anymore. I don't know. Have you gone back to try to watch Wizard of Oz since you've watched the musical? Have you read the book too?
I think I started reading the book and then got distracted, if I'm being honest. Because it was a physical book and not a digital one. So I couldn't take it with me places.
Gotcha.
Which sometimes kills my reading on stuff. But
you just have to have a big enough purse where you could just stick your book in it.
Right. But well, and with Wizard of Oz, it doesn't help that I was kind of burned out on it already from it. That's just the family option for like if grandma's over or something. Yeah. Love the musical though.
Yeah, I think with with the musical and with the book, it's just this. Yeah, you have this completely different look at it. You have a woman who was actually trying to do good, and everything else acted against her because, as one of the songs says, "No good deed goes unpunished."
I'm so happy not to burst out in song right now. You don't even know.
I totally know. Anytime somebody points out something that has to do with Hamilton, or like earlier in the episode, you're like, "We just want to be in the room," and I'm thinking in my head, "In the room where it happened, the room where it happened." I almost started bursting out into song then, but I waited until now. Okay, how about your next two?
Okay, my next two. I'm like even half forgetting what I narrowed my list to. Okay. It would not be a reading suggestion.
Have your list written down? Is it written down at all?
It was written down at work and then I forgot it, so I opened tabs instead. So it would not be a reading recommendation list from Antonia if it did not include Terry Pratchett.
Okay.
So yes, I'm including Terry Pratchett. Here, the issue is narrowing it down to a more specific book than just like all of the Discworld series, which is, huge and epic. But I do think he could be relied on to write women well and not in only, one kind of this is woman character type of way. So to narrow it at all, his witches are amazing, and they're able to be older women and amazing and badass, but also he also has a young adult series within Discworld of a witch who's just learning, which is also excellent. But also he has an amazing character, Susan, who's the granddaughter of Death, and is basically everything I want to be in the world. Yeah, she's just very much a badass and takes no shit from anybody. And I love her very much.
All right.
So
does that qualify for one book or two books? Or are we talking the whole, or is it the whole series?
I'm cheating and calling the whole thing one choice.
Okay, that works. I can live with that because I did Parasol Factory as one choice, and it's like 6 books or something like that.
Mine's like 30 some, but one choice.
That's not much. Not much at all.
So also because I have recently been reading comics for like, I guess, I mean, over probably like 2 years now, but it was a silly thing that I didn't let myself do because it wasn't expected of young ladies or whatever. And a parent never was going to offer to drive me to a comic store or anything. So yes, I have recently been reading comics because I can, damn it. Um, so once again, cheating and including multiple recommendations under my one book. Ms. Marvel and Captain Marvel, the newer runs are amazing.
They are. It's so good to hear.
Ms. Marvel is now a young Muslim teenager. And just, it's so good. She's, very much the teenager trying to balance her teenage life with superheroing, but at the same time that she does come from a very conservative family, which, even if I'm not Muslim, the conservative family is definitely relatable.
I think so many relate to that whole conservative family thing.
Yeah. And then over with Captain Marvel, Carol Danvers, who's an awesome lady and who's going to be in the movies soon. But I have to admit, I'm annoyed movie-wise because they cast 20-something Brie Larson instead of a 30-something, early 40s woman who it should be. But
I agree, but
I'm still excited.
At least we're getting the movie. It's a step in the right direction. We're going to take one little victory at a time.
Right? I'm like, what I can get because I'm, dying here, but could have been better, damn it.
I love the women of Marvel.
Right? And I'm cheating and throwing in actually, I think there's a newer Kate Bishop run just starting, but in the Matt Fraction Hawkeye run, there was a side story of Kate Bishop, who is the female Hawkeye, and they are Hawk Bros with she and Clint Barton. But yeah, so there's a section of that where she's off in LA, kind of being a private eye superhero, and generally being fabulous. So amazing too.
Love it. Yeah, and that's a great thing because I think within the comic book world, we do have a lot of really great feminist literature that we don't really talk about because it's seen as a boy club. Last week I had on Tanya Bjork, and she and I were talking about her series, which I think you actually might like. It's called Havenhurst. Actually, I think you would definitely like it, where you have a female protagonist who comes from this abusive family, and she's the one who has a strength, and it's not other people saving her, it's her taking her own fate into her own hands. And so we got to talk a lot about that, but you see more of that in the comics, ironically, than you do in other areas of the world for the longest time. I mean, look at Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman's been around since what, the 20s or 30s? The 30s, I think it was when she got started. It was like late 30s, early 40s. She's been around a long time. She's been around almost as long as Superman.
Yeah, 41.
Okay.
But still super established character.
Exactly. And so you have these strong women. You have what? Batgirl, there's been Supergirl, there's been even Catwoman. Her own respects is very feminist. So you've got a lot of really great feminist literature within the comic book world that movies and needs to catch up with, and other literature needs to catch up with. So my next two, because of course they're going to be historical fiction, the Outlander series. How can one of us not bring up the Outlander series? So many of us are Outlander fans here who come on the show. Myself, Eddie, Antonia, Michelle's an Outlander fan.
I have to admit, I'm not as big an Outlander fan, I think, as the rest of you.
I haven't read past I want to say book 5. I think I'm on 6. And they're just such heavy, thick books, and I just haven't. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna get to book 6 once season 5 has finished, and I need to read that before, so that I know what's going to happen in the season before. So I've gotten a bit lazy on it. I think it's very much that it's very feminist in the fact that you have this woman, a modern woman from the 1940s, who was a nurse on the front lines, and she goes, the 50s start to set in where it becomes it's like that whole backlash to all the progress that was occurring in the 1940s. But instead of actually going into the 50s, she goes back into the 16th century? It's like late 1700s, the Highlands, just before the Scotland did their attempt for independence from England. And that whole thing, like what Veronica had said in the book, where I hope we can bring, you can bring your sensibilities back with you. Claire actually tries in some regards and nearly gets herself killed multiple times for doing it. And I think it's a good story in the fact that it looks at what women actually went through back then. The actual cases of rape, the actual cases of being a piece of property, not having your choices, and seeing it through the eyes of a modern woman going back, and having to deal with these things as the story progresses forward through time. I think it's a very, very good book in that regards. Did you have thoughts, Antonia?
I mean, again, I agree with you. I don't know why, because by all accounts it should be something that I became obsessed with, but for some reason it didn't click for me as much as it did, I think, for most of you.
I can understand that. I can see that. Well, the next book that I have on my list, moving along down the line, is Madame Presidentes. This is, you might need to borrow. Do I need to bring this with me tomorrow so you can borrow it?
Possibly that, or I just need to download it.
Download it. You can go ahead and download it. Because, that's right. You prefer your ebooks.
Okay, it's a strictly functionality reason, and it's because I read on my phone at work sometimes.
I will not turn down a good ebook.
But I
can't right now I'm going through a physical book phase.
Especially I like physical books better, but can't read them at work, so.
Yeah, understandable.
But
Madame Presidentes is about the first woman who ever ran for president. Like back when Hillary started, people initially started saying she was the first woman to run for president. And there was like, no. She's not the first woman to actually run for president. There was this other woman, Victoria Woodhull, who did. And if you go to creatingherstory.wordpress.com, I actually did an interview with the author. Actually did a guest post for me, comparing and contrasting what happened when Victoria ran for president versus today when Hillary was running for president. And it's really interesting to see the compare and contrast and how little things have changed, and how this woman was vilified, and how much of a different kind of woman that she was in the 1800s. So I consider that to be definitely a piece of modern feminist literature. Mm-hmm. How about you, Antonia?
What
are your next 2
books? Okay. So my next 2, I know that you didn't like this one as much as I did, but I am including Diviners by Libba Blank.
You're going to say that. Go ahead.
So
tell me why it's so wonderful.
Partially because I appreciate that its heroine is allowed to be an absolute shit show of a young woman. Because I feel like a lot of times when people write strong female characters, they have to be kind of perfect. And just, uber competent and, always know what they're doing. Because, they are strong women. But in this case, it's set in the 20s. This flapper who's trying to find her way in the world. And she is a train wreck of a human being. There's the supernatural stuff going on too. But yeah, I really love that also it has a lot of different kinds of women in it. So, she does have her quieter friend, and the two of them get to know a Follies showgirl who's very confident. Um, and yeah, I like that each character is allowed to be very different, but very fully realized and very imperfect.
I love the imperfect characters. Those are really great. And your next one?
My next pick is kind of, I feel like in some ways it was like the Parasol Protectorate series to me, in that it follows, one woman through the series, as opposed to, the next book is about the side character kind of thing. Of the Lady Julia Gray series, by Deanna Rayburn.
Okay.
So the first one is Silent in the Grave. But yes, Victorian lady who is solving crime and generally being awesome.
Well, it's like the book I just reviewed for Historical Novel Society. It was called No Pity for the Dead, and what I basically said of the book, it was basically it's Sherlock without all the sexism. Is that what Julia Gray is about? Is it like that? Is it like Sherlock but without the sexism?
Yes, you know what? I think it kind of is. But yes, I had a lot of fun with that series. It hadn't made my 5 list, but only because I was trying to curb my desire to put all historical fiction.
Which I'm okay with, because I mean, when it comes to historical fiction and really looking at that under the scope of feminist literature, it's good because we learn lessons from history.
I think that's where a lot of women are, quote unquote, allowed to write also.
Mm-hmm.
A publisher will, buy that manuscript, because we're ladies and should only write romance.
But also looking at some of the historical fiction that's coming out, like actually, we'll jump ahead to one of mine that's on the list, and it's Marlene, the story of Marlene Dietrich. And it's actually written by. Have you read that one yet?
No, I haven't. It's seriously, I'm like increasing my list right now.
You totally need to. It's actually written by a guy, C.W. Gorder, and what's the reason why I bring it up for historical fiction and why it's so great as a piece of feminist literature is because she was not your stereotypical woman of the 1930s and 40s. She was bisexual. She had a number of different lovers. So she was very much a modern woman, and she was a strong woman, and she was dedicated to helping the troops when it came during World War II, and actually saving people from Germany who would otherwise be killed by the Germans. And so much is focused on saving the Jews and the Holocaust, which rightfully so, that was an atrocity. But the Nazis weren't just going after the Jews; they were going after the homosexual community, the transgender people. When you look at, I never truly realized how much Berlin was like Las Vegas, steroids in a lot of ways. It was like West Hollywood meets Las Vegas, really, is what it comes down to. It was like a mashup of those two cities together. All the weirdness, all the exoticness, all the drunken debauchery, just put the two of them together, and that's what Berlin was in the 20s and 30s. And all of that went away when the Nazis came in. And she actually helped save some of those people from that. And she's an unsung hero for that. And I think it's a lesson that women need to learn. And I think that she is somebody that women within the LGBTQ community can look up to as a role model.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, so many women are pretty much only remembered for being pretty faces, and all of the amazing stuff they did gets kind of swept under the rug.
Mm-hmm. And that's why historical fiction is important for feminist literature, looking at
Absolutely,
feminism.
yeah.
Yeah.
Again, don't get me wrong. Like, I totally love and respect historical literature.
Mhm. Obviously, but for those of you who don't know, I like to call her Antonia's my editor, because she reads a lot of my stuff and she really helps me edit and get and getting Anita prepared to pitch out to people. And she's going to be getting, once she finishes up Anita, the 4 chapters that she had. Only 4 chapters left, girl. Only 4 chapters left, and then I will let you read my new stuff.
Yeah, again, don't get me wrong. I think that it's important and why am I not thinking of the word? I'm getting
Underutilized?
not underutilized, but just it's not a respect enough genre as it deserves. But I also think that people are more willing to take a chance on a woman writing that as opposed to like a hard crime novel, perhaps. So in that respect, it doesn't shock me that we see more feminist literature kind of coming out of that pocket.
Well, from this point on, all of my books are pretty much going to be historical fiction.
Good, because I like it.
That's my second book. My next book, going back up onto my list from the one that I skipped over, was Dido's Crown, which we'll actually be reading in February. Because when I have a tendency to pick books, they have a tendency to be historical fiction. Dido's Crown, I love it. It's by Julie K. Rose, and she's actually going to be at my literary festival in March. I say my literary festival, it's not completely mine, it's in the city of Santa Ana, but she's going to be one of the featured authors there. But it's set in World War II, and it's like Casablanca meets Indiana Jones.
I'm
really is.
Say no more. I'm buying it.
with Dido's Crown, it's you have this woman who you're not so sure about when it starts. You don't know what her motives are, and it's not just about this one woman, it's this cast of characters. She ends up going on this wild whirlwind ride through, I want to say it's Tanzania. It's Northern Africa for sure. And in France. And she's with 3 other guys, one who just so happens to be gay. She's running for her life from the guy that she's married to, her quote-unquote husband. And I say the term husband in the very loosest sense of the terms, because they have an agreement with each other. A very modern agreement, if you know what I mean. And but she's strong, she's complicated, and she is flawed like hell. And so you see this very brave, upright woman that you don't typically see when you see these sagas of World War II and World War I. It's the woman being the backup to the guy, as opposed to the guy who's actually, or the woman who's actually the one who's in the forefront. And the guys are the backup to her. And they're the ones who are wistful and with the history and whatnot. So that's my idea of it. And I won't give too much away because we're reading it in February.
Yay!
Yay! Okay, so what's next on your list, Antonia?
That's basically it for my planned list.
Okay. Have you had a few more?
Sure, I could come up with more ideas, but now I feel very on the spot.
Well, I'll go on to my next 2 ideas, and I'll give you a couple more. So it'll give you some more time to think of a few others before we close out for the night. My next one on my list is "I Shall Be Near to You" by Erin Lindsay McCabe, which we've had on the show previously. She was our first author guest. Back when we were still trying to figure out how this whole podcast thing works. With Erin's book, it's a story of how a woman dresses up and masquerades as a guy in order to go into war to be with her husband, because she wasn't going to get left behind. And it wasn't until Erin's book that I knew that there were all these women who would dress up and go to war to be and fight alongside their husbands and their brothers and their fathers. And it, uncovered this whole section of feminism that I didn't know existed during the mid-1800s, during the Civil War.
Mm-hmm.
So it's definitely a really strong piece of feminist literature, especially given the fact, women in combat, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And then my last book is Z, a novel of Zelda Fitzgerald, which Michelle and I got confirmation today that the author Therese is going to be on the show with us in April.
Oh my gosh.
I know Michelle's probably listening and going, God, I wanted to be the one to make the announcement. I forget what the other book is, and we'll talk about it in detail, but like I've read Z and Michelle read this other one, and they both are about the time of the roaring 1920s and with Zelda and the Fitzgeralds. We each read, a different book on the topic. We decided a long time ago that we wanted to try something where I read one book and Michelle read the other book.
Mm-hmm.
And then we compare and contrast these stories since they were so similar. So we're going to do that for the month of April, and we're going to have both authors on.
That's so fun.
We're going to have a roaring 20s party when they're on to discuss books. But Zelda she's definitely become a modern feminist icon.
Mm-hmm.
Of the way she was treated and the way she's been treated by history and the way she's been treated by her own husband, and the way that Ernest Hemingway treated her too. She was just another woman. She was, excuse me, she was the one that, because she went on from thing to thing, that they couldn't, that was seen as a bad thing because she couldn't find her own voice. She wasn't really allowed to find her own voice. Mm-hmm. And she had to live in Scott's shadow for so much of his life. And I think there are a lot of times in the book that I got really, really frustrated. I loved Fitzgerald's work, and I loved Ernest Hemingway, but there were multiple times where I just wanted to reach through the book and just punch Hemingway in the face, and which I'm sure that he would have loved. He would have loved the whole boxing match thing because he was such a chauvinist. But I can't even bring myself to read books about him anymore. I'm so just like, I'm so angry with you.
I feel like there's so many cool ladies I could read about instead.
You mean instead of Zelda?
No, instead of Hemingway.
Oh yeah. I was gonna say, wait a minute, Zelda was pretty cool. Yeah. But yeah, I used to really love his literature. I used to love his short stories. I still think he's one of the best short story writers that there are out there. Mm-hmm. But I can't appreciate him like I did then, because after I've seen more of his story, it's that whole concept of separating the artist from the art.
Well, and I feel like my issue is also, once I know more about the artist, then I think certain things in their art leap out more to me than they might have. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, oh dear, I know where that's coming from.
Was it Farewell to Arms, that's the one about him when he was in World War I, right?
I think so. Pretty sure.
Yeah. After I learned more about him and the way he wrote that ending, I was like,
yeah.
I don't like as much as I did before.
Yeah. Yeah, mm-hmm. In general, I'm pretty bad at separating artists from their art. I feel like certain views are going to color your work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's a whole nother topic for a different day, because we could talk about that for another hour or two. We've gone over our hour.
Oops.
It's just a wonderful time talking. So thank you all. Thank you, Antonia, for being a wonderful co-host.
Very happy to. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome back here anytime.
Thank you.
Okay. Next week, we're actually going to have Jennifer Lamb discussing Zarina's legacy. And everybody be sure to actually finish the book by next week, because there will be spoilers if you have not finished the book. So finish the book by next week. And with that, have a wonderful night, everyone, and we'll see you in a week.